I want to talk a little bit about what it means to have been a meditator for over half a century. I really started in 1967, so that's a long time ago. And I think my expectations were that by this time, I would have been, in a way, erased, and that all that would be left would be this sort of big, smiling, empty space that just embraced and loved everything in front of it. And in a way, that's kind of what's happened. But it's not about erasure. It's about a body, mind, personality being that engages through the human dynamic with everything in front of it and everyone. Partly as a human being, because hard to escape that until you drop off the body, but mostly as a kind of, and I love this word, an I am. Whatever that entails. It certainly entails the biological, the physiological, the metaphysical, the physical. It's a totality. And it views the world from a particular pinpoint, and at the same time, it engages a totality, but that totality is completely informed by a physical body, a space one lives in, an environment, a town, a world that one inhabits, and they're all part of the same. And it's called I am, or I amness. And that I amness is less and less informed by my history, the idea of a future. It's really more and more informed by what is now. Partly because history is very much past tense and doesn't really dictate this moment. It has a coloration of this moment, but it's not alive and active, really. And future is so bizarrely unknowable that you really just keep coming back into this space. And it's rich with present tense. It's rich with being. It's rich with the I am. And it has an element of your personality, a little bit of your history, a little bit of your background, clearly floating around in it. Certainly other people bring that to the table when they're with you. And it clearly has an existential awareness of time and space as impermanent and definitely alterable. And also very clear about this idea of finality or end of this particular part of the journey. And you can relate to that in a million different ways. And for many, many years, part of my spiritual life was to kind of prepare me for that, in a way to save me the pain and the suffering of loss and grief and disintegration. But it doesn't do that. It's really not its goal. It's to make you aware of it all, of the total conscious experience of being a living being at this moment in time and space. And when you get to the point of what I call, or we call retirement, where you're no longer generating activity to keep you meaningful and engaged in the world and feeling like you have a purpose, when that kind of starts to fade away, something else happens. And I've been watching this and exploring what it is, and it's quite remarkable. It's called arising. Stuff arises, and every day in your life, there will be a series of arisings, some of them personal, some of them impersonal. Some would be just people who happen to walk by you. Some will be people who call and say, can I come talk to you? Some will be events that are possibly dramatic, possibly involving loss or surprise or gain. You don't know, but life continues to arise. Of course, it does that the whole time. All the time you're a person, life rises up. But when you have nothing else really like day-to-day work and all that kind of stuff, arising becomes a bigger event in a sense, but you start to see its source. You start to see what is coming at you and why it's attracted to you, why it wants to be there. And I can only imagine if you've lived a life of anger and hostility, the thing that will arise will be things that will make you angry and hostile. If you've lived a life of kindness and giving, things will arise that will tap into kindness and giving. In a way, you create the I am. You are the originator of the author and the architect of I am. And it's operating even now, even in your busy lives. But I will tell you, when your lives get less busy, you really get to see it. And what you really see is that you are a vessel for this I am in so many different forms. And sometimes you watch it unfold and you are amazed at what a vessel it is, how closed and unresponsive it is to what happens in life. Things arise and you dismiss them, or you get angry, or you get rejected by them, or whatever your mental framework is. But if you have spent a lifetime or some period of time in this meditative state, what you start to get is an image of how it all works. You don't get all the answers because the brain and the mind are incapable of getting and holding answers, but you get a glimpse of, and maybe more than that, a sense of I am. And this I am is not bordered by your body, your house, your town that you live in, or the city, or the highway, or the freeway. It just is everywhere. And this I am is not a private refuge. This I am is a collective. It is massive. And it is the essence of who you are and what we all are. If you have spent your life meditating and devoted some period of time to sitting still, it has begun or gone beyond begun to reveal itself to you. And the way it reveals itself to you is a very quiet, silent ah. And you can't even cognate it into a form that you can then transcribe or transmit to another human being. It's just like an awareness. It's a sense of, I get it. You can't express it in verbal terms, maybe, but you can express it in how you are, in how you live. And then what arises in that space will bring it more fulfillment, if you will, more richness, more beauty, more whatever it is that you're attracting. And some people are attracting the stuff of 40 years ago or from their childhood that has never been open to resolved. And so a lot of times people start to get to their adulthood, and what they start to experience is unresolved issues that are being buried further and further away by all of your distractions. And then suddenly work, day-to-day effort is taken away, and there's nothing to distract you from what has yet to be resolved. This old ancient stuff in you, childhood stuff. And it's so funny because I think most people, when I work with them spiritually, if you want to call it that, I'm dealing with children. I'm dealing with unformed, unresolved issues that are locked in place in some strange way and need to be embraced, touched, hugged, kissed, undone, if you will, unbroken, and allowed to move and function again, so that the I amness is not a wounded, conflicted, tight being, but by the time you arrive at nothing much more to do, you are nothing but that. And you don't feel like, oh, I should have done, or I wished I had done, or I did that wrong. All of that stuff, which limits your life, that makes you feel frustrated and makes you feel like you have done less than you should have or could have, that starts to fall away. And what happens is there's a profound acceptance and appreciation of what you are and who you are, and a forgiving, if you will, which is a really important part of this, of what you aren't. Because when you start to experience your humanity, you realize there's no way for a human being to be everything you dream and hope and pray it can become. You're an approximation of that. But that approximation is a good approximation, and in many ways, it's what I would call enough. Accept what you are. Accept the I am, because it's never perfect. It can't be perfect. What is there to perfect? You know, what are you going to do? I mean, maybe you can walk on water. Maybe you can turn water into wine. Maybe you get those kinds of skills, but most of us are not going to be that. What we're going to be is human beings who are very available to the what is, and we watch what comes in, what arrives, what calls us, what texts us, what walks into our house, and we open to that, and we love that, and we give to that. And if you can do that every day, it's like cleansing. It's like taking care of business. Taking a shower, is not something everybody does all the time. But there's a reason to take a shower, because if you don't take a shower, you start to smell. Lack of cleanliness starts to impact your body and your insides, and you start to become someone who people don't want to be around. So there's a physical take a shower, wash, cleanse. There's an internal version of that. You go inside and take a shower, meaning you open up to the flow of the liquid-like presence that washes through you and washes out and cleanses on a daily basis. That shower, that cleansing, that inner process that works so deeply in a human being makes you more and more available to I am. So when the time comes and everything else is falling away, the I am is strong and present. 50 years of meditation, 50 years of present tense, 50 years of engaging this process has a value. It's really potent. And I can't say it gives you all the answers, because in the end, it's not a cognitive process. It's more of an emotional, experiential feeling process and a kind of what I call gut level knowing process. But it doesn't always translate through mind. And if it does, it's a very open mind that goes, aha, aha. And it listens to the world and it lets things come in. It also frees you from your own drama, from your own thought process. An open mind can see its own thoughts go by without latching on to them. So that as you start to relax in your spiritual journey, you can see all this stuff that's coming and go, And because the universe is so big and you're so small in it, and you start to see your own smallness in the I am, you feel like, Okay, I'll accept that limitation. I'll accept that. The failure, the not getting, whatever it is that's holding you up, that's hanging you up. You can start to go, okay, not a problem. Let it go. Let it go. You may have to let it go regularly. It may come at you over and over and over, but that's just patterning. It's the old mind that doesn't know what else to do other than go back to the same old suffering, which often, as I say, is child related. So learning how to go, as I've described in other talks, how to go, nope, nope, nope. You don't have to grab it. You don't have to take hold of it at all. You can just let it go. And what starts to happen is a kind of stillness of being, a kind of openness, a kind of availability to what arises. And what I've been shocked by, in a way, shocked maybe is the wrong word, but I'll say delighted by, but surprised by, is what's arising in my life and who is arising in my life and who is showing up for the I am of the Bruce thing, which tends to be pretty loquacious, pretty much talking about, the spiritual, the journey, everything you hear me talk about every week. If you knock on my door, that's what you're going to hear. And if it's too much, you'll leave. Yeah, and I don't care. I don't care. It's what I am. It's what I am. And I have no problem with that. And I do know if people show up for the what I am or for the I am and they don't like it, then, that's their mind kicking into gear. But I've been talking to people in the last weeks, actually, that you would never imagine would seek out this kind of information, dialogue, exchange, feeling. I never in my lifetime. And here they are at the doorstep, sitting there listening and going, huh, it is so touching. It is so moving that people are knocking on the door and calling and texting and wanting something. And part of it, of course, is, the world is, as we all know, in a strange place right now, perhaps always has been in a strange place. And this week has been unbelievably unexpected and strange. You can read the newspapers if you want to talk about it, or watch commentators on television, but expectations, even the talk I gave last week about storm clouds gathering and going in your house and, just close the door and be quiet. That the storm clouds gathering and then the storm clouds dissipating is not uncommon. I mean, if you looked at my weather report for today, it's really fascinating. One weather report says rain coming today. The other one says no rain at all. Two very valid weather reports. And I look at both of them and I understand, that in a way it's a gift that they're both right or wrong. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because all you can do is have a raincoat and have an umbrella and go through your time, go through your day at any given moment. Don't trust the projections of the universe. Trust that which arises. And what arises is often not predictable, not what you expect, not what you asked for. It's just what is. And if you can learn to accept the what is of life, you're going to live a much different life than if you can't. And part of what will arise, just so I can prepare you for this down the road, is stuff you don't like. Disappointment, pain, discomfort, aging processes, all these strange things, unresolvable issues arise. And what happens, and I talked about this a lot, there tends to be a reaction to that stuff. A reaction of, oh, I don't like that. It's a closing. It's a kind of a get me into another place. No. You can't get to another place when you are everywhere. All you can do is go, okay, one, forgive yourself for reacting. Unreact, if you will, which is to just go, let go, surrender, Rudy's term, surrender, accept, know that you're human, know that you're biologically part of the dramas of life, and also know that you are part of the infinite time and space and beyond of the universe. It's strange. The mind doesn't know what to do with that. But I will tell you, the simplistic thing of reacting to someone else, to some situation, is completely human. The spiritual teaching is you can let go of that. You can actually go, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't have to say that. I didn't have to do that. Forgive me. There's all of these things you can do. And then if there are the old things that have been left undone, go do them if you can. I mean, there are things you might want to say to people who are no longer in the world. That's hard. But you can change the equation in yourself by going inside and going, I am so sorry. And every opportunity you have to bring that sorriness or that apologetic nature to others before you start that problem again is a great learning lesson. As a human being, you can not recreate old problems. And if there are people you can go to that need to be apologized to, forgiven, whatever it is, do it. The last few weeks, I've talked a lot about proactivity. Go out and do that thing. And it's really important. It's really important to make those gestures because the I am knows that. It knows it. It wants to do that. It will do it. If you get out of the way, it does everything. It cleans the path for you. It paves the path. At some point, it may get rocky. At some point, you may not know how to move forward. And at some point, you may be totally obstructed. God knows what life and karma will do and what, the experience of finality may ultimately present itself to you. But all I can tell you, trust the arising, no matter what it is. Bring I am to the table. Embrace totality as it shows itself and begin to find, I would call it the gratitude of day-to-day being. And that has become the blessing of 50 years of this meditative pursuit. Half a century of trying. Half a century of trying ends up in a retirement mode where mostly all I feel is grateful. Just grateful. And I mean deeply, deeply grateful. Like awed and overwhelmed by the miracle of gratitude. And I wish that for everybody. It's not like you have to wait for it to come. I definitely had many, many episodes of and moments of that during the journey that brought me to this moment. But I will tell you, when you arrive at waking up in the morning and having a day in front of you and no agenda and feeling open and grateful, it's pretty extraordinary. And then you watch what happens. Sometimes nothing happens, but if nothing happens, it's meditative. It's a still pointedness. It's okay. It's okay. And I'm still learning. I don't want to walk around like I'm, some saintly entity, because I'm not. But I am someone who's worked for 50 years. And I want you to know what it's like to work for 50 years. It's not a waste of time. It's like taking your shower, clean yourself regularly, do the job, do the work. It's really important. Rudy said it's a life's work. It's what it is. This is not a casual thing. It's not an occasional thing. And so I encourage you. I guess that's the whole purpose of this talk. Try to find a way to do this daily. Do it daily. Find your way to yourself every day, as often as you can. In the beginning, for me, it was sitting for half an hour every morning and a little bit before I went to bed. I've explained this along the way, but I arrived at a place where it's kind of like all day long. It's just all day long. And you don't have to stop to do it. I mean, you can just call it take a breath, or you can call it just open your eyes and look around. But it's pretty wonderful. It's pretty extraordinary. And I know there's challenges and difficulties and fears and all that stuff and anxieties that come up in people. But trust me, just like getting dirty, jump in the shower. Jump inside and cleanse yourself, open up, get yourself ready for the next moment. Really important. Also, just a brief thing. Rudy, one of the things he used to say to us in the introductory class was, do not move. Meaning, don't do this, look around, the various things that people do. For some reason, today's class was full of that. People doing stuff. It's not a good sign, one, about your attentiveness. It's clearly the body is drawing more attention than your inner being. One person was so disruptive, I actually, you probably saw me, I had to lock her out of the class. I've never done that before, but she was kind of having a fight with somebody, I guess, in her room, and I didn't want that disrupting all of this. But I will tell you, when you're sitting still pointed and your body starts to throw stuff at you, you don't have to attend it. You don't have to do that. You don't have to scratch your head. You can actually not give in to that disturbance. And it's a practice, because at some point in your future life, you're going to get much bigger things to react to than itches. And if you can learn to let go, if you can learn to just go, I am, much better. And it's a good training ground, because it gets more intense than itches. It gets more intense than, there you go, rubbing my nose. It gets more intense than that. So do your best to try to sit still during class and be really present. And it will serve you. And I don't have to yell at you the way Rudy used to yell at all of us, me included, for doing the unthinkable, like that. So thank you for coming. Thank you for bearing with me. I know that the talks have a certain kind of commonality, but they arise. That's all I can tell you. They arise of their own nature. And that arising is now arising in your life, in your mind, in your environment, on your Zoom, on your computer. And it's real. It's arising, and you can allow it in and do with it as you will. I mean, your computer, God knows, talk about arising. The world arises on your computer over and over and over. And most of you, me included, start to go into elements of that. And it can become very unstable and destabilizing and unsettling. Or you can just go, click, nope, not going there. It's a good practice. Turning off your computer, turning off your mind, turning off your brain, turning off your reactivity. Great teaching. Enough said. Any concerns, needs, questions, thoughts that I can address personally? Yes. Okay, Kim, I'll give you the first shot.
Sure. I really am so grateful that I came here today. It was exactly where I needed to be. Thank you, Bruce, so much. Recently, I have entered the I am, and what you talked about today is so what I needed to hear, because in the process of just being in a meditative state, I have stopped doing this rigid meditating, right? So before it was like every morning I got up, I had to put on Insight Timer and do a 10-minute thing about opening your heart or expanding your mind. And it started to feel rote. And one day I just stopped doing it. And then I was in this place of judgment of like, well, God, now you're not even meditating ever. Like, what, have you just stopped being a meditator? And then I was like, okay, well, right now I'm not a meditator. Okay, well, and then all of a sudden I realized I was doing things different. I was letting reactions move through me. I was not jumping. I was seeing patterns, and I was like, oh my God, am I living in a meditation? And I felt so like I didn't tell anybody, because I'm like, that's the most ridiculous thing to say to anybody. And you just validated that so much for me. And like I've learned from you over the many, many years I've been coming to you, is that could change again too. And so I don't have to get attached to it. But for right now, I have to be okay with that's exactly where I'm at. So thank you for speaking of that.
Yes. To all of the above. It does change. It doesn't go away. It changes, it alters, it becomes other. It's a big ride. It's wonderful. I think my own story involves stopping meditating because I kept thinking it was too goal directed. And a few weeks after that, this kind of AMness occurred. And then, of course, as I've said many times, I thought that my graduation into a doctorate degree was really kindergarten to first grade. So I got more humble about whatever that meant. But it is an evolutionary thing. And pride is problematic in it, and it will show itself to you if that's what happens. It's really humility in the end. It's great humility because we're so small in the equation, and yet we are one with that equation. And it is exquisite to be aware of it. And so, congratulations. Anybody else? Yeah, Dean.
I think you touched upon my question already in your talk, but I've already forgotten the answer. Recently, I've been struggling with feelings of isolation and loneliness. And I do think this is something that I experienced and struggled with earlier in life, much earlier. And later in life, I had superabundance of people, and now, you know, there's this emotional reaction to that, a feeling of loss and atrophy or whatever. And I'm kind of waking up and trying to reach out and struggling with trying to meet this idea of who I think I should be. So I'm kind of curious if you could touch upon that again, and just the breathing into it and the expansion of.
First of all, I go through the same thing.
Really?
And,
Okay.
yeah, I keep wanting to call my mom. I just have this unbelievable urge to call her, and I kind of do in my mind. I get on the car and I drive, and I just call her. I just talk to her. You know, long gone, but but we have it's not exactly a dialogue. It feels like one. And life gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and there is a kind of sense of loss and a sense of being diminished in a way, and sadness and grief that goes along with that. But there's a really important question that comes up in the midst of that, and that is, who is grieving? Who is sad? Who is sensing the loss? And the experience of seeing that person, and that part of that person, myself included, is that you go, oh, that's what's feeling it. And you go to that place inside, and you can kind of hug it, put your arm around it. You can just acknowledge it and go, I get it. This is human. This is natural. This is not an unnatural thing you're experiencing. It's very much part of the human journey. And you go, okay. And you let go, if to the degree you can, of that being, of that part of your being. Not that it won't come back and it won't keep playing its sort of role that it plays in your life, but you will become more and more I am, which allows for that to occur, and less, but what about me? It's not personalized. It becomes something else. And not only is it not personalized, it's recognized as universal. You are not the only person experiencing that. I would venture to say almost everyone I would ask, even in here in the class, has been experiencing that to some degree. And if not, they will be, because everything gets taken away. It separates. Your children leave you. The grandchildren don't want to talk to you. Your parents are gone. I mean, on and on and on. And what do you have? You have whoever's with you, whoever's sharing your life. And even then, you recognize the temporality of that, the impermanence of that. So that if you aren't completely miserable and grieving now, you will be down the road when everything is taken away. So knowing that that's part of the I am experience, that loss is at the core of it, and that the whole Buddhist teaching is all about impermanence, meaning it's all going to go, including you. There comes some moment, it's like that, where you go, oh, it's not going to last. Nothing's going to last. It's going to keep changing, even me. And then you kind of find I won't call it a warm, giddy, comforting little feeling. It's like I get it. I get it. And it's like you're not fighting it. You're not going down the tubes of anxiety and misery and all that stuff. You're just going, okay. And then my experience is a kind of stillness in it, a kind of non-suffering in it, and then, if you will, an arising of funny little things, like somebody calls you and says, "Hi, I miss you," out of the blue. And you go, huh. And it's a tiny little, what I refer to as grace note. It's not a symphony, it's a note, but it's enough. It's enough to make you feel, huh. And you start to get all these little things, even someone smiling at you at the grocery store, all these little things make it good. And then there's this incredible piece of knowledge that starts to come, that everyone else is going through this, and you can be the antidote. You can be that which makes other people feel less lonely, less grieving, less afraid, less cut off. All you have to do is get on the phone. All you have to do is reach out, say, "Would you like to have a cup of coffee?" And you change somebody else's life. And boy, the interesting thing about that is that your life changes as well. But you can't do it for that reason. You do it for them. Do it for them.
Yeah,
Do it,
service.
Not so you get. You will
Right.
get, but if you do it for that reason, it counters the reality of it. So you want to just be available for the other. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but not so that they will do unto you. You just do it for others, and that's a great thing, and that will get rid of and will take care of a lot of what you're experiencing. But let me just tell you, it's a long journey of this kind of thing. It's not just a singular moment and you go, "Oh, I took care of it." There's learning. There's a lot of learning that happens. But when you really do learn, you go, the I am is at the source of all of this. This is universal. This is big stuff. You come in the world, it fills up, it's lovely, it's wonderful. You have all this stuff, and then it's all taken away. And it's unbelievably difficult, but it is the source and the core of the Buddhist teaching and of every other teaching, really. You're temporary. You are temporary. And figure that out and do the best you can to help other people who are figuring that out for the first time as well.
Wow. Service. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay. Oops. Yep.
I just want to thank you for these discussions, as well as the meditation, of course, every week. I'm a little behind where you are in life, but I'm experiencing the things that you talk about each week, and I find what you say really clarifies and helps me stay on a good path. You're bringing into consciousness things that I'm just experienced just at the right time, and it's amazing to me.
Yeah, well, it will continue to arise. Sure. I mean, Rudy's teaching continued to arise for me, and he's been gone for 50 years. They're still arising. And you go, I mean, I'm thankful all the time, because the teaching isn't it's not locked in time and space. It's eternal, and it's always available. And if you've opened up to it and you make yourself available, one, it comes through for you. More importantly, it comes through you to a lot of other people. And it doesn't even have to be verbalized. It's just how you talk, how you hold their hand, how you put your arm around them. It's so simple. And even if it's just one other person, that's enough. If it's multitudes, great, that's fine. Some of us are meant to talk to multitudes, some of us are not. But if you become a talker to multitudes and you identify with that, you're going to be in trouble. You don't want to become anything except, available. See what happens. But thank you. Are we done? Okay. Love you all. Thank you for showing up. Really wonderful. And
thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce.
Love you, Bruce.
Love you all.
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you.
Bye.